Hi and welcome. I want you to think back to a time when you had to create something or draw something or paint something that really you felt you were working way too hard at and it wasn't giving you the results that you wanted. Well, I'd like you to open your mind and try this approach that I'm kind of recommending and see what happens. Making an altered board book. It's really fun, and I think that's the major word I want to emphasize, because it not only it is fun, but it also offers you an opportunity to explore a side of yourself that you won't normally explore if you're using either pre-cut images that somebody else has designed, or if you're if you're trying to sketch in a journal and you're getting frustrated. For me, this was a way that I jump-started my career in collage and mixed media. And you can see I'm trying to open one of my pages that's glued together, but board books are so much fun. And if you haven't tried one before, I hope you take this opportunity after this course to give it a whirl. The great thing about it is you start with either a little golden book or a toddler's board book, and from there on in, the sky's the limit. You may decide to do a book that has a theme. I have a farm-themed book here, and you may decide to create your own storyline if you like, or just put text in that's relevant to your images. It's a lot of fun. It will bring out the inner scavenger in you for sure, and it's very liberating. I would say that was a truth for me. It's a liberating kind of art form, and there's something satisfying about putting all your thoughts, images, and playfulness into book form, and then having it to refer to later on those days that you're feeling uninspired or feeling that you're just not getting to where you want to go. This is also a great activity for when you don't have a lot of space to work with or a lot of materials, or you're just kind of not able to really get into any large projects. This is a wonderful way to get yourself involved again with an art form. And you can see I'm showing you different pages I've created, and I like using a lot of old ephemera. And the beautiful thing about this also is you're not really too concerned, as well, at least I'm not too concerned about copyright, because I'm doing this just for myself. This is not a marketed book. This is just a playbook. It's a journal. It's a way to express myself, and it's a lot of fun. And I find all ages really appreciate the process in creating one of these books. Here's a little assembly of my past creations, and every once in a while I start a new one, just because they're too much fun to put aside, and they feel like they kind of give books a whole new life as well too. That old book that was ready to be thrown away or discarded, you can use in a new way by ripping up and giving it a new life. Okay. Okay, let's talk a little bit about hunting and scavenging. I think for me, this is one of the most rewarding parts of pulling together an altered book or a journal, or doing probably a lot of my mixed media works, is finding that perfect picture, the images that pull together to create a story or to convey a message. This is an old Fortune magazine that was about to be tossed from my parents' basement, and it's from 1963, and I just couldn't bear to let it go. I do pass some things along, but I know I will find some images in here that will work for me. The whole idea, too, is to really look at a stream of consciousness kind of search pattern, to look to see what grabs you, what colors are drawing you in, what images speak to you. So you don't have to be too methodical about it. I would say just look through your magazines, rip out, as soon as you see something that really appeals to you, try to ask people for their old magazines or books. They can be new magazines as well. They don't have to be older. I tend to gravitate towards the old ones, but I look for a figure in a piece that may draw me in and I think I might use later. I might not use them, but if I'm interested, I'll rip it out, and then later I will see whether it works for me. Old storybooks are rich in material. As the letters say, you don't need many materials. This is what's wonderful about this art. You need a glue stick, a board book, some scissors. You can use medium and paint if you like, but basically you can do it with a glue stick, with scissors, and ephemera. Okay, and anything you collect, or tissues, or wallpaper, or anything that really appeals to you. Here's an example of an image I found that I know I'll use later. And here we go. This will be used in the cover. Just a little preview there. So I'm starting with a simple children's board book. It's really, I don't care what the title is or what the graphics or images are on the title. I just know that it's got a good weight. And these board books are really easy to work with. And they don't have too many pages, so you won't be frustrated. And here's continuing to look for pictures. You will find your own kind of style and pace with the pictures you choose. I like to look for a combination of images of people, things, places, objects of interest, people in interesting poses. I won't even really explain too much more than that because I think it's so personal. Just whatever grabs you. That would be the best way for me to describe it. And don't worry, at first you're not going to be doing a whole lot of cutting. You'll tear out. But as you get closer to putting your book together, you may be starting to cut your figures out very fine. And I like to do a lot of precise cutting for my foregrounds, for my images of people or objects or things. And my backgrounds I leave fairly loose. I think I'll use this somewhere, but I don't know yet. The book that I'm going to be creating, I started out with the word play, and that gave me a starting point or jumping point to put my book together. You can actually use text from your book if you want to either paint around or cover part of a page and then just reveal a line of text. You can do that as well. Or you can do as I'm doing and just find some interesting pictures and hope that they'll fit together with your theme. And if they don't, well, at least you've had fun doing the searching part. So, and again, I could spend a long time doing this, and I find it very meditative to do this, and I think probably you will too. I found that there's a common denominator among people that do mixed media pieces because they are thinking about older images and a lot of vintage stuff. And here's something, a text, for example, as well as what we've done in between. I don't know where that's going to go, and I think it'll be interesting to see how it comes together. Again, searching more. I could do this for a long time. And I encourage you, even if you're bored someday and you don't feel like doing art, pick up some old magazines and look through them and tear out what you think you might use later when you have a little bit more artistic energy. Here's a picture of a moonscape, and I thought that could come in handy somewhere too. Okay, here we have the word play, as I promised, and I took it out of a page from an old storybook, and I realized that could be broad enough that I could have fun with it. And because what we're doing today is looking at play in our art, I thought it was appropriate to use it in our exercise today. So the first thing I want to do is, I've got my word, I've got my theme. I usually like to start with the cover. So what am I going to do with the cover? Typically I'd like to cover the whole cover, but it varies. This particular book I think I will cover. And here's our moonscape again. And I thought it might provide a lovely background for the cover. So I look at whether it's going to fit for a double spread of the book, because I'd like to do it on the front and on the back. And I'm not very, again, terribly methodical in terms of doing neatness and measuring and so forth, but what I will do is put it, this is not very scientific. I'm sure you probably do this already, but I will lay the page underneath the book and then either draw an outline around it, or just, if I'm really careful, I'll just take my scissors and cut around the edge, so I've got a pretty clear cut. My filming here is a little off, but that's really what I'm doing, is I'm not even using a pen to draw it out. I'm just cutting around the edge of the board book so that it will fit. And this really doesn't take too long to do. You can use whatever you like. If you really want to use, if you want to paint the back of it with gesso and then acrylic paint, you could do that. If you find some really interesting tissues that you like to layer, that would be fine too. So you can see how my page and my title page is coming together. I guess one could say the moon has its playful aspects. So anyway, I can't even say why I did that, and I know that sometimes when I teach a class, people want to know precisely my process and my thinking patterns, but I think you'll find yourself that the beauty of this kind of art is that sometimes there are none, and sometimes it's so subliminal that you're not really sure where these wonderful ideas came from. But here is the man that I'd cut out earlier from the Fortune magazine, and it just seems to really fit this space really nicely. And the idea of him facing away, I mean, I don't have to have someone looking at me direct on to tell a story. This draws the viewer in, I believe, and makes it interesting. And I just showed you a little bit of gel medium. Now you can use a glue stick. Gel medium or a podge probably will work better adhering your papers, but so for here I'm using the medium, and I try to tamp it down really well, and I'm using the brush just to do that. And because I realize the page can take both sides, I think in order to seal it, I put medium on the top as well as the bottom. So this is going to act as a glue for our next image. And you can see the layer effect, and I will be doing this kind of strategy on all my pages in some way or another, as I start with a background, and then I think about what do I want to put in my foreground to make it pop, or to make it interesting, or to tell something to the viewer, or just for a satisfying image for me as well, and for you when you're doing your own board book. So you can see I like to get a nice even grab. So I keep working that brush with the medium. Now at this point I could have also used a glue stick and glued my top images once the medium had dried, but I'm in a little bit of more of a hurry because I'm trying to demonstrate to you how this comes together. But you could do this all with a glue stick as well, particularly the word play and the image of the man on the sidewalk. So this is where I start to get really enthused, because the book is starting to come together. Okay, now we're introducing some color, and I find using the same kind of techniques, I'm just thinking what will cover these pages and take away from the former book and make this my own imprint. And I start to find colorful backgrounds, interesting images. I'm thinking a little bit about the concept of play, but I'm also thinking about how I position my figures on the page that I find pleasing and that also makes them stand out. So here's an example of putting some backgrounds and foregrounds together. I guess I'm showing you the gel medium again for some reason. I guess I'm really trying to show you that I'm being very precise about instruction here. But yeah, I probably didn't need to show you that. You know that that's probably what I'm going to be doing, is I'm still doing a bit of that for the backgrounds. And again, you can use the glue stick as well. If you have heavier papers, they may not stick as well to your board book if you use strictly glue stick, but the only disadvantage for using the gel medium that I can see is that if you're layering it underneath and over, you have to wait in between pages in order to do the next one. Otherwise, you'll have everything sticking together. And here's the light bulbs again, or the picture of, I'm not sure if it's light bulbs, but they're kind of, they have that the sort of painterly quality of light bulbs. So they go on this spread, and we'll see what happens there. My aim is to cover all the book entirely, so there is nothing recognizable about the original board book. So however you want to do that is fine, and it's the challenge, isn't it? And I deliberately picked a smaller board book with less pages, so really I was able to accomplish this, filling the entire book within this particular instructional video. And I'm realizing I'm talking far too much, so I think I'm just going to let the music play for a little while, and you can watch what I'm doing. There's nothing too unusual or different that I'm doing that you can't figure out from watching me assemble these pages. So okay, here we are, where I've done the back of the book as well too with the moonscape, and I was just demonstrating that I think it looked like I'd forgotten all about the back of the book, but there it was. And I've used a little bit of the moonscape again, carrying a theme into the book of either particular colors or textures, or in this case, actual images, will pull the book together as well too. And here I'm trying to decide what I want to use, because I've got a lot of pictures, but maybe they don't fit. So I'm really looking at how the images work with the backgrounds and whether they fit in with my theme or what I'd like to say. And I go with the little boy. He's in such an interesting position, and there's more I can do with this. And this will, your creative savvy will start to shine through as you do more of these kind of, it's like each page is an individual piece of art. And I think you will find it quite pleasing what you discover about yourself as you cut and paste. I just wanted to add that if you're using a little child's, toddler's golden book, or a book with thinner pages, don't despair. What I would do is glue the pages together. So glue maybe 3 or 4 pages together so you have a nice thick substrate to work with. It's not quite the same as a board book. It's not as easy, but you still get a nice end effect, and you'll end up being far less frustrated by having fewer pages and spreads to have to deal with. So that's just my little tip. And that's true for any sketchbook where you're trying to add collage or layered materials. You'll want to glue the pages together, and you'll be much happier in the long run. Okay, so here we have the little guy, and he's well positioned on the page. He's actually pushing the edges of the page out with his body, and it seemed to be working quite well. I'm using more gel medium, and I found a piece of text that I'd like to use as well, just to pull the page together even more so. If it's a book, you may want to put more or less text, but this particular page is calling for some text. So it says, I'm not sure, something of the children. So let's just see what it looks like when we put it on the page. One of the children. Okay. And, you know, it's open for interpretation, but that's the particular text that spoke to me. So, and you can see the child is pushing it away. Another page. What we've done in between. It's a little less sometimes about the message and more how pleasing it is to come together. And if it does fit your theme, then that's lovely as well. Then you've accomplished what you want to accomplish. I have some, right here, some cardstock, which definitely needs medium to hold it. And this is me getting a little bit more, shall I say, lazy about the pages and not thinking as much that I want to do the work of finding the perfect background. So this liberates me in yet another way. I have two pieces of cardstock that I will put I will glue to my pages, the next two pages. And I just wanted to demonstrate that that's also another way you can work with your books. If you want to cover all the pages with cardstock or plain color paper, or painting them if you feel you have the time for it to dry, then please go ahead. There's really no rules in that respect. It makes it sometimes more interesting. And there are some other images that I've pulled together. And you can see that they do even stand out more so when they don't have a photographic background, but just as fun. And sometimes I'll overlap one of the images like I have here into the middle of the book as well in a 2-page spread. And I'm demonstrating that in this particular spread I've used a glue stick. So there you go. It is possible. But what you will find is that the older magazines and images are a little bit more flimsy, so a glue stick may work actually better than gel medium. And here's a few more that I've put together. And you can see I've used some text from an old school book as well. And cutting out different shapes for your background can be interesting too. I've got a circle that mostly covers the page, and I'm not worrying if it doesn't cover the whole page, but this particular one I'm doing with a glue stick to demonstrate it can be done. And you're getting a slightly different effect with the glue stick. You're not getting it doesn't look as pulled in and painterly as when you use the medium, but it still is fun, and I think the effects can be just as satisfying. I thought it was important to go through this book and show you kind of every step from start to finish. It doesn't, again, always explain what's going on in my head, but as I don't often know what's going on in my head, it's probably just as well to demonstrate with you visually what's going on here. And typically when I'm doing a book like this, I might do 1 or 2 pages one day and then go away and come back and do it again. So it depends on how you work and what you find satisfying. You may be able to dedicate a whole afternoon to making one of these books, and that would be quite luxurious. Again, layering. And sometimes a tip I would give to you when you're putting this book together is play around with your figures and your backgrounds before you add the glue, because you can get sometimes a bit hasty and think, I think this is the way I want it to look, and then realize later, I wish I'd moved it a little bit more in this direction. So it's kind of nice to be able to just move it around before you add the glue and see whether it works nicely for you. As you can see, the page isn't completely covered, but it doesn't really matter. The essence of it is there's a major focal point, and you tend to forget about the background after that point. And here we have with the text, or a piece of an old page of a book. And sometimes people say to me, how could you rip up those old books? Well, I usually find or have been given books that are already fairly distressed, so I guess I could keep them forever, but I also feel that it's a way of kind of resurrecting them and giving them new life as well, too, in a different form. And this picture of a background of maybe a 50s or 60s house, it was sitting in my scrap box for the longest time because I kept thinking there's somewhere where I'm going to use this house. I wasn't quite sure. It didn't fit into anything else, but it seemed to fit into this page. And I have a fireman, so it seems like I'm going to find a place for the fireman. And I just might slip him under here, just peeking out. And then I have two children who are interesting in their pose. And I know that I want to cover up that little gap there, so I use the children to cover up the gap. And it seems to pull together. Oh, and an elephant with some water coming out of his trunk. So it kind of fits with the water and the firemen and the children. So maybe. Anyway, even if it doesn't, I enjoyed doing it, and I hope that you'll take that perspective as well. It doesn't really matter if it's perfect. It doesn't matter if it even makes sense. What matters is that you do it and you have fun with the process of it and just see what develops, because you'll be surprised sometimes what comes out of your mind. And it isn't like anything else. We have so many rules and rigid expectations in our lives that to do something like this where you just play and create using pictures and just letting it evolve can be very, very rewarding and relaxing. Into your life. I hope you had fun. I certainly had fun making the video, so enjoy art and be creative and be yourself.